How's it? Welcome back. Here we go, chapter 17. But first, let's get that tea brewing. Alright. Youngsters in training. Every afternoon when I go to the shooting range with my FN to practice, Moz sits and watches. A small 3-year-old figure sitting on a stone nearby with toilet paper sprouting out of his ears to protect them as much as possible. Can I shoot, Dad? I show him how to hold the 13-pound FN under his arm. We set up falling plates at 20 meters, and on his first attempt, he managed to hit 5 out of 20 shots. Every time we go, he gets better. I teach him how to load the magazines, the difference between tracer and regular, and by the time he is 4, he can hit falling plates at 25 meters, but I haven't a clue on how he can aim. Matt is now 2, and the bush training begins. Since Moz is older, Matt is his responsibility. Matt has to learn to obey his brother, and the urgency of speed when we get into a dangerous situation. We're halfway through our Rhodesian terrorist war. Soft targets are the most sought after, and a man carrying 2 young boys would pose as a soft target. I'm not going to leave them at home, but I am going to teach them to survive under the worst situation. This involves knowing the bush well, knowing how to live off the land, how to hide, how to anti-track or cover up your tracks so that no one can follow you, and how to find shelter. The Matopus National Park is only 20 minutes from Bulawayo, and whenever I'm free, I take the boys out, and we learn our lessons. Most of the time is spent walking, often with Moz tagging along behind, and Matt in a backpack. On long treks, Moz would ride in the backpack, and Matt would sit in a harness I made up that fits across my chest. It meant that he covered my webbing, which could not have been very comfortable for him, but I found something out about kids not wanting to be left behind. On one of our excursions, when Matt was sitting in his harness, I was busy watching ahead, and then heard a metallic clink. Looking down, I saw the pin of a grenade, and then saw that Matt had pulled the pin out of one of my grenades in the webbing. It took only a second to extract and throw the grenade, hit the deck and wait, not breathing. Bushes and trees were shredded, and leaves and small branches fell on our heads. There was no discipline needed for this mistake. We were walking near the Sengwa River and came across a large muddy pool. Moz had been pestering me to throw a grenade ever since Matt had pulled the pin by accident. Now he was at it again. So the 3 of us crouched down behind an anthill next to the pool, and I helped Moz pull the pin and lob it into the pool. There was a satisfying crump when the grenade went off. A resident catfish came slithering out of the pool and came behind the anthill after the explosion. It lay there for about 2 seconds and then went slithering back into the pool. We all laughed at that one. Alright, just gonna get my tea sorted. I've run out of milk again here in my dorm. Gonna go get some more. So it's just black tea this evening. Yeah, I like it on occasion. Can taste the tea better, you know. Cheers, eh? Ooh, that's hot. Other lessons include names of birds and what their calls sound like. We start tracking animals, learning all the different spoor. Our first animal is a white rhino. Moz is put on tracks, and Matt follows. Finally, we are in sight of the rhino. The wind is coming from the wrong direction, so Moz picks up a handful of fine dust and pours it from his hand. He follows the dust trail until he is properly downwind from the rhino. I follow behind, watching. They have learned well and fast. The two of them are now behind a clump of mapani trees, about 10 meters from the rhino. The rhino sprays a bush to mark its territory. I clap my hands and the rhino whirls around and takes 3 steps in the direction of the clap. Moz without hesitation shoots up a tree, leaving poor Matt at the bottom. The rhino smells human and trots off with its tail tightly curled upwards. So Moz, what did you do wrong? I forgot Matt. Sorry, Matt. He slides down the tree and gives his brother a hug. Try to climb the tree, Matt. Matt climbs, and with Moz pushing, they get up the tree. I'm standing back a ways, smiling at what is unfolding here. A deep love that is going to keep them together, always helping each other. They keep climbing like I've taught them, until they are completely concealed in a canopy of leaves. They sit dead still without a sound. I also sit still for about 5 minutes, and then give the whistle of the grey-headed shrike. That's great, boys. You did very well. Now next time, you remember Matt. Giggling and scuffling starts at the top of the tree, and two small boys come tumbling down, hanging briefly onto branches and then letting go. They land in a heap at the bottom of the mapani with a few scratches and then come running over to me. Our lessons included snakes, something they seemed to inherit, as it took no training at all. At sundown one day, I see the two of them sitting under a bush, waiting silently. I take up position where I can see what's going on and wait. In a minute, here comes someone riding along on his bicycle. Moz pulls on a fishing line, and across the bicycle's path, a black bicycle inner tube appears to be slithering like a snake. There is a shriek of terror, and the pedal starts spinning. But the fishing line gets wound up in the pedal, and the faster the man pedals, the faster the snake catches up with him. At the last moment, there is another shriek as he realizes that the snake has caught him, and he jettisons his bicycle and tears off into the bush. Ah, yes, no one is too young to study and appreciate the science of levitation. Yeah. I start to take the boys on camping trips when I thought they could survive an attack or an ambush. We practiced what would happen in case of an attack, and they seemed to have it down pat. I was off to Binga to catch that elusive 20-pound bream. I'd heard of a bay where people were catching some pretty big ones, so this might be my day. After a day of fishing, I wanted to stay right out in the wilds, so we went out into the hills and camped there. During the night, the lions started to roar. There's something almost delicious about the tingle that runs through your body. I hear some people wax eloquent on chocolate mixtures. Perhaps you could say the same about a lion's roar. Powerful, rumbling, a dash of fear, and a sound you want to hear again and again. Maybe not so close, but never forgotten. What's that, Dad? Moz is up on his elbows in his sleeping bag. It's a lion, my boy. Is it close, Dad? Yeah, not so close, eh? Are you afraid, Dad? No. Are you? No. But do you mind if I get into your sleeping bag with you? Boys are on either side of me, watching me with big eyes. I think there's room in my bag for 2 small boys. A second later, there is a small squiggling body on either side of me. I think about the day's events. A man had come up to me and tried to sell me 25 elephant tusks. I was quite curious about this, as most poachers usually only have two to four tusks at the most. Most of them were quite poorly dressed, but this one had good clothes. The general price of illegal ivory was about half the legal rate, but this chap only wanted 10% of the legal rate. I smelled a big rat, but who would want to set me up like this? I pondered over this for a long time, listening to the Scops owl, the spotted hyena, and the lion's roar going off into the distance. In my dreams, a black man was trying to sell me poached ivory. I saw where he had hidden it. I saw more than I wanted to see. The following day, we went fishing again. Still no monsters, but a great time was had. Unfortunately, it was office work the following day, and we headed for Bulawayo. My first patient in the morning was a 7-year-old boy who was very frightened. He wasn't crying, and was he wasn't crying, and was trying to be very brave. He was biting on his lower lip and looking around at all the strange instruments. I told him to wait, as I had just the right medicine for him. I called it love in a tin. I would take tins of sweetened condensed milk and boil it for 3 hours, turning it into caramel. One had to be sure that the top of the tin was covered all the time with water, or else the tin would explode. I found that out the hard way, and it took my cleaner the good part of 3 hours to clean all the walls and ceiling. After boiling, I would put the tin in the fridge, and if I had an unhappy patient, big or small, I went to the fridge and brought out the tin with 2 spoons. I've never met anyone who didn't like it, or who wasn't helped by it. Young Pete and I sat licking our spoons of caramel, chatting, and by the time we had cleaned off our spoons, he was already my friend. Pete had one small filling to do, and I took the slow-speed drill and put on a brand new round burr. I took his thumbnail and ran the burr on his nail, explaining that this is what it would feel like on his tooth. He was quite happy with that, and I managed to put in a small filling without anesthetic. Phyllis stood in the doorway. "You got company. Criminal Investigation Department, they say. You got up to mischief in Binga, didn't you?" Without waiting for a reply, she turned on her heel and went back to her desk. In the waiting room were 2 white men dressed in suits. I came in and said, "Good morning. How can I help you?" The one in the blue suit said, "We believe you were in Binga recently." Brown suit was gently picking at his nose and looking at his feet. "Yes, that's right." I caught the eye of brown suit, and with my finger brushed the opposite side of the nostril he was picking. He brushed quickly on the opposite side and then turned bright red. I knew right away that brown suit was just an apprentice. Blue suit continued. "We believe you bought elephant tusks while you were up there." "How many tusks were there?" I asked, dangling some bait. "There were 25. Suddenly he realized that he had just been caught, and he didn't know how to wriggle out of this situation, so he continued. "We hear there were 25 tusks, and we were told that you bought them." I leaned over towards the blue suit and spoke slowly and distinctly near his face. "Now you have cleared up everything for me. You can search the office, my home, and unless you have planted it there yourself, you will find nothing. Now, if you and your nose-picking friend will excuse me, I have work to do." I got up, and as I went to my office, I heard the front door close as they left. The second day the boys and I had gone back fishing in Binga, I had found the chap selling the tusks. I told him I wanted to see them. He showed me, and then I told him that I would be back that evening to bring the money. I knew by then that it was a trap. He never did see any money, and he never saw the tusks again. I hated when people try to trap me. Now the CID was left trying to figure out the missing pieces of the puzzle. Judy said I had a smirk on my face the rest of the day. I had an invitation to come to a patient's farm in the Guampa forest the next day, and I think I was smiling at that offer. Judy, however, had other ideas. Now, Keith Jackson is a huge bear of a man. He works on Portway Estates and wants me to come and shoot some meat for him. He gives me his tracker called Mazamban to come with me and to help me with my two boys. We live early in the morning, and I am already marveling at the trees of the forest. Growing in almost pure sand, they have large trunks and full crowns. We walk along at slow pace as the bush is thick. Mazamban goes in front with my sporting rifle, a canvas bag full of flares, grenades, extra ammo, and a water bottle. I follow with Moz walking behind me and Matt in my backpack, carrying my FN and webbing strapped to my chest with 4 extra magazines of ammo and 2 grenades. Matt rides without a sound. It is the way he has been trained. Moz tugs on the hem of my shorts once in a while to show me a spoor, a large millipede or a tuktuki. It's a little beetle that taps its abdomen on the sound and makes that on the sand and makes that sound, that tuk tuk. It's an absolutely beautiful day. Mazamban stops and points ahead. I lean my FN against the tree and take my rifle and look through the Leopold scope. I can just make out the face of an impala ram staring at me through the foliage. I look at Mazamban and shake my head. But why, Nkosi? It is an easy shot. My spirits are not happy. My spirits are not happy. That is enough for Mazamban. He knows that one never argues with the spirits. We carry on for another 20 minutes, and later, under a chocolate berry tree, called Vivax payos, we spot a large kudu bull. And what do your spirits say this time, Nkosi? I shake my head. I know Mazamban is teasing me. We go to where the kudu was standing and fill our cheeks with the large, fleshy black berries. They taste like chocolate without sugar. We are slowly chewing the berries, the way you do when you've put too many berries in your cheeks, when the staccato of AK gunfire brings us out of our different worlds. Mazamban drops everything and melts into the bush in the opposite direction. I look Moz in the eye and carefully say, "Hide." Then I take the FN and canvas bag and start to run. It took me about a minute to get to where the contact had taken place. I came in quietly, slipping from tree to tree, looking up into the trees and looking for spoor. There is a tractor burning in the clearing. One old man was laying next to the tractor, riddled with holes. AK casings were all over the place. Looking at the footprints, I account for about 20 men. I'm sorry for the old tractor driver, but it's a good thing I didn't make it in time. I would have stood no chance. 20 minutes have gone since I was last at the chocolate berry tree. I look around as I want to see how well my sons have passed their real examination. There is not a single one of their footprints. I can see where a piece of grass was used to erase the signs. I stare at a log laying not too far away and can see nothing. I give the whistle of the grey-headed bush shrike, and 2 blonde heads pop up from the log I was just looking at, partially covered in leaves and dry grass. My heart almost burst with pride and relief. It is one of those moments branded onto that piece of my heart to do with emotions. Hugs are traded all round, and they are proud of my compliments. They want to know what had happened, and I have to tell them. We are sitting there when Mazamban materializes out of the bush, making excuses for his fast getaway. Mazamban takes us on a circular route back towards the farm. This time, I spot the eland before Mazamban does. I take my rifle and wait until the eland is looking slightly away from me. Putting the bullet just behind its ear, the eland drops without a single movement. Matt bounds away, and I watch as he reaches the eland and touches the eye. If for some reason the eye blinks, Matt knows that it's not fully dead, and insists on another brain shot. Ah, the Nkosi has good spirits, crows Mazamban. And what of your tractor driver friend laying back there in the forest? Eesh, that too is his spirits. He takes my knife and cuts the neck of the eland to drain the blunt. Mr. Jackson, he will be too happy today. He does not like to come out here and shoot meat for us. But now, long time no shoot. Mazamban is trying out his English, and it sounds about like my Ndebele when I try to speak to him. That night after dinner, Keith brought out some of his old guns. A 404 Jeffries, a 318 Wesley Richards. English guns of fine reputation. He puffed on his pipe, and the smoke made ghost trails across the room. I looked at my boys, thinking that they were probably the only two boys of their age to have done something like they did today. Their basic training was over, and they slept like two curled cats on the sofa on either side of me as I listened to stories from Keith from the past. All right, that's it for today. Tomorrow we will read the chapter of Sweetman, which is fascinating. And I just recently found out some interesting stuff about Sweetman from one of my friends today. So I look forward to that. Well, good night, sleep well, and I'll check you tomorrow. Cheers.